Hi, everyone. My name is Ann Madison. I am the director of Peace Restored. I'm excited to have you guys join us back today on our podcast. If you haven't been listening, or if you have been, we've been doing a series on the topic of recovery. And so today we're going to continue that conversation and be talking today about the impact of shame and stigma on recovery. If you're familiar with the topic of recovery at all, you know it is a growing need in our culture and our communities. And it's really a topic we need to be talking about. And you might be wondering why we are talking about that as an organization. Peace Restored works in the space of mental health to provide care for those who have been through some really challenging spaces. And often, substance use is a topic that comes up in the care that we provide. And so we wanted to be able to provide some resources and some information out to those listen to our podcasts. And so if you're listening to this and you are someone struggling with addiction or in a place of recovery, please reach out for help or assistance. If you are a female over the age of 18 and you want to learn more about Peace Restored, you can reach out to us as well, and we're happy to give you assistance. Go to our website, peacerestored.net, to learn more information. But today on our podcast, I have Chloe Raleigh joining us. She is on staff here at Peace Restored, and Chloe is a mental health therapist and works also in art therapy. And she's going to be talking to us and having conversation about the topics of shame and stigma on recovery. So thanks for joining us, Chloe.
Thank you for having me, Ann. Really looking forward to this topic. I think it's really important for the community, so I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you. I think it's going to be a really good conversation today. So as we start our conversation, Chloe, let's really kind of dig into our first question, which is, how does the interaction between shame and stigma create barriers for those seeking help as they struggle with addiction or mental health issues? So what are some things that you've seen?
Some things that I've seen is, the main one is avoidance. That's really big in shame and stigma, because I think of it as a bunch of generational gaps too. You know, there's a time where mental health was just like pushed to the side, like we don't talk about that. You're just gonna smile and you're gonna walk through it and everything will be okay.
Yeah.
So everyone's living with these false hope or false prophecies, really, with the shame and the stigma. And it's basically like we're creating that curse, that biblical, a generational curse for our families of not, talking about the stigma, especially when it comes to substance use or battling addictions. It's not talked about, and it really does create a lot of harm, I have noticed.
Yeah, that's good. I appreciate how you started out with the idea of avoidance, though, because I think for many of us, especially working in the area of recovery, or if you're working through your own area of recovery or in sobriety, sometimes avoiding treatment, or because there's this fear of, what are people going to think of me? How are they going to treat me? Are they going to think that I'm less than? There's so many thoughts that come up when considering going into treatment, whether it's counseling or inpatient, whatever type of treatment they're seeking, there can be that avoidance factor, right?
Right. And you kind of spoke a little bit about the narrative too, when you said, they think of, but this is what I have to do, or I can't do these things because of this. Just goes back into, is that really the reason why, or is there something else that needs to be resurfaced? And it's really a lot of unfinished business too that relates to it.
It really, unfinished business is really good, because there can be what I like to kind of think about is the root cause or the roots of what's there. So if we think about a tree, right, we see what's above the ground, we see the trunk and the leaves, and we focus if that tree is dying. Often we'll look at the tree and say, there must be something wrong with the leaves or whatever. So we try to treat what we see.
Right.
But often, as you're referring to, there's something under the surface. There's some underlying issues that need to be addressed. Because if we just treat the symptom, so I think when we're talking about recovery, so if we treat the symptom in that, which is just stop doing the substance. If you just stop doing the substance, you'll be fine.
It won't.
But that's not the truth, right? Because there's a reason why that substance exists. There's a reason why you're being drawn to do something to minimize whatever pain that you're feeling. It's a salve that they found.
Mm-hmm.
So have you seen that kind of play out in the maybe clients you've worked with or maybe places that you've been, how individuals may end up really feel like they don't deserve help because, because of all the things we've talked about. So it's that avoidance. It's that I can only do, people give the assumption of this, I should only be working at this level of care.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I have definitely seen it
Yeah.
in individual sessions. I've seen it in group settings mostly. It's a group of ladies that I work with, and it's very prominent that the guilt, the shame is there because they feel like they've had so many chances given to them, or
Right.
and they're like, well, now I'm here, and I'm at this age and I'm still making the same mistakes, and they're just so hard on themselves. And it's so interesting to see this because of, like said earlier about like the generational gaps. You also have the societal pressures of, what's the trend now? So not only are you trying to repair yourself with your own thing, you're also trying to like keep up with the trend. And if you're not on the train, then people are looking at you kind of sideways, and it makes them feel kind of outcasted and looked at differently. I know one of the statements that hurts the most when I hear it, and I still hear it quite often, is, "Oh, that person looks like a meth addict." How do we know what a meth addict looks like? And one of the ladies brought that to my attention at the group I work with, and that just shattered my heart. That there's still a lot of ignorance within our community, and there's a big lack of education of the why and the reasoning behind why someone may have tendencies like that.
Right. It's not such quite cut and dry, right?
Right.
Someone's not an active addiction because they woke up one day and they decided they wanted to become an addict.
Right.
There's a causation behind it. And I think because of that, there's often, as they're walking through trying to find a place for recovery, part of that shame component is the isolation that happens. And you've kind of already indicated that a little, you've talked about that a little bit, is how shame can really lead us towards isolation. And then also that isolation can create a level of secrecy as well.
Yeah.
And so as we kind of think through that and think through how that can really impact the ladies and people who are listening to this podcast, right, is when we're in an environment where we feel whether you're going through recovery or even trauma, right? And again, both of those things sometimes are co-occurring, trauma and recovery. And so when those things are occurring, that isolation and secrecy can be really strong. Like, I can't tell anybody what I've been through. I can't talk about this. I can't, I'm alone. Nobody will understand. And that just really adds to that layer of shame, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it does. That's like the I can't think of the word right now, but I can describe it, I guess. It's like you keep walking and you have all these bags, and the bags just keep accumulating because no, you don't want anyone to help you carry these bags because they're your bags that you picked up.
No.
And it's it's
Mhm.
really hard to see and to watch. And also it's even
Mhm.
harder to
It
hear
is.
individuals think that, okay,
Mhm.
I have to do all this by myself. I can't get help because I'm going to be judged. And that's the biggest thing is, being judged
I
by others, looking looked down, feeling belittled.
had.
It's just so many things, so many factors really that correlates with not just substance
Yeah.
use, but any type of, mental diagnoses someone may be going through. And shame is a
Have.
really huge part of work.
Right. It's so big, and I don't think we talk enough about how shame affects who we are and
Bro.
how we interact. Because I like your picture that you used of kind of having the different bags or the different bags that we've carried. So there could be things that we've picked up as individuals walking through recovery of any type or that trauma that you've been through. And so you had those bags of things that you've kind of carried because of that. But there can also be kind of the societal or cultural baggage, if you will, that's put on you from the shame and the stigma. And that
Right.
can really weigh that person down too, because now, because of all the weight of
Mhm.
those bags, it makes it an even heavier challenge to go out and seek help. Because
Right.
if that could feel almost impossible at that point.
Mhm. It really can.
Yeah.
And
So what are some ways? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chloe. Cut you
it's
off.
it's okay. I just wanted to add on, it kind of makes you think of the staying in my
I
shoes, you know, or not judging a book
Mhm.
by its cover. Um, you don't know anyone really until you have walked in your shoes. And I'll make this very
Yeah.
brief, but there is an art directive that is used in these types of situations, not just with substance use, but anyone
Let me
who
right.
is dealing with guilt and shame. And it's usually used in a family setting. However, I love it because, you create symbols and all the things about yourself on the shoe. And then you give it to the next person beside
Gotcha.
you. And this person is telling what your shoe means. It dictates to them. And what's really interesting about it
Really.
is it can be like the complete opposite of what the person meant in drawing. So a lot of the shame and the guilt comes with, like assumptions on things that
Uh-huh.
people don't
Right.
really talk about and, avoid.
Yeah.
Hi, I wanted to interrupt this episode to share a little bit with you about Peace Restored. I'm not sure if you're aware, but Peace Restored is a non for profit, and we rely on support from people just like you. Did you know that if you donate as little as $2 a month, it could provide curriculum for a woman that we provide mental health care to? Or $4 a month would help us provide mental health care for a woman just like yourself or someone that you care about. So if you would consider supporting us in our mission, please go to our website at peacerestored.net. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this episode.
Yeah, that's really good. So the assumptions and the avoidance, they kind of play together is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah.
Makes those challenges or goals for receiving care even greater. So if you were kind of thinking through this, if you were somebody listening to this podcast and going, man, this sounds like a lot of things to um make it so much more challenging, the stigma and the shame to go into recovery, it makes things much more challenging to get help. What would be some words of encouragement that you would give to somebody as they're listening to this podcast of how they can overcome some of these hurdles that we're kind of talking about?
Um, I would say, you know, being self-aware is a really big one. Um, acceptance is really hard, and knowing the
Uh-huh.
space that you're in. and telling
Yeah.
yourself, okay, this is where I'm at. It's not where I want to be, but I know that I'm going to work to get better. And, you know, there's chats. There's so many different ways to communicate if you're not ready to speak to someone on the phone or, you know, see someone face to face. I can definitely use myself as an example. When I first started my first counseling journey, I had postpartum depression really bad, and I'm so scared because I've heard all of the stigmatism
Right.
between women with postpartum depression and that they do weird things, and I didn't want to be that woman. But I knew that I needed the help in order to take care of my child. And what I realized was all the things that were said about that was not true. It was just a lot of ignorance and lack of education on my side as well, you know. Um, so my word of advice is to educate yourself a little bit on the word of shame. Um, like I said earlier, get your acceptance is really, really huge. Like accepting where you are and being not necessarily completely okay with it, but like, okay, this is where I am, and I know I need to do things. So taking, small steps. It's really easy for us to look at the big picture, but we forget all the things that we want to do to get to that picture.
That's really good, Chloe. Thank you. I was thinking about as you were talking about the word shame again, as you were kind of explaining some of those ways that we can overcome that. I was thinking about the definition of shame.
So,
And, when we think about shame, I've always heard the definition of shame as shame means that I am bad.
well,
And so it's like you hear all these things and it just defines you as being, you are what's wrong.
right.
Not that something bad has happened to you or that you've made a bad choice, but
Then,
shame defines you as being the bad.
yeah.
Man, that feels heavy. I know I've been in spaces like you were talking about is
Yeah.
where it felt like the shame was so heavy that it really shaped and it made me believe that I was bad. I wasn't worthy of anything.
Right.
And that's a really hard place to be in, especially when you're walking through recovery. So I like how you kind of tied those together, thinking about shame and what we can do about that, because you talked about awareness and
Yeah.
how we can be self-aware, and it takes time
Um,
and kind of learning how to become self-aware. It's such a valuable skill, but there are some skills that we have to learn over time to where we can be more self-aware. So if you were learning to be self-aware for it's something new to you, is there some way that you can help yourself kind of process through self-awareness or learn, like if there's like a tip or a trick that somebody can do in that self-awareness space, especially for somebody that this is new to, and they're like, man, I've kind of aware that things hurt. I don't know what's going on, but how do I process through that? How to become more aware before I kind of go kind of down that trigger path, if you will,
right.
and become reactive to that, whatever's happening.
Yeah, I'm so happy you brought that up. Um, the first thing that came up to my head was breathe. Give yourself permission to take a step back and breathe. You don't have to make a decision
It's
immediately.
good.
With how fast-paced society is, depending on your background, your culture, how you grew up, how quick you had to respond to people, take a step back and say it's okay. Give yourself permission. Say it's okay. Um, I've learned that it's helpful for me because in the past I felt like I've always had to have the answer right then and there, or I had to figure out a solution immediately. It's not like the problem is going to have legs and run away. The problem will still be
Right.
there. So giving yourself some space to process that and pace yourself is one of the best things you can really do for yourself. And that's what helps for me.
Yes. Yeah, that's good. I remember I think there was a song, and I'll probably get it wrong, but maybe we can look it up later and share it with everybody. But I think there was a song that I used to listen to, and it's something it was like, the premise of the song is, it's okay not to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved that because we don't give ourselves permission.
Yeah.
It's like, we have to have it all together. We have to have the right answers. And if you have those thoughts and then you're working through recovery or trauma,
Yeah.
that feels it. If you don't know it's okay, or you haven't been given permission, so to speak, to feel not okay,
I mean,
those feelings feel so much bigger.
although it really feels like you're
So just,
suffocating,
yeah,
really.
go ahead.
Yeah. Like when you,
It really
when
does.
you talked about, a song, It's Okay Not to Be Okay. When I reflect back on trying to take all those things, and like you said earlier, claiming all the baggage of the shame, guilt for yourself, it's like you're digging yourself in a hole, and you just keep going and going. But the self-awareness is, okay, am I going to go ahead and stop? When will I give myself permission to just stop and pause? And I think that's the hardest thing. Like I said earlier, not just with substance use, it's with any type of mental diagnoses or anything that you're struggling with. It's hard to stop.
Yeah,
And find a stopping.
it does. It does. And I think recognizing that while people will say, well, if you just stop this behavior, you just stop feeling badly, you stop making bad choices, right? All the things that the kind of the woulda, shoulda, couldas, if you would just do all these things, your life will be fine.
Right.
But it's not as simple. If it was as simple as that, we would all have done it by now. We would just flip that switch and be better.
Right.
But I think there's such a value, right? And being able to be in community with others and learn how we can grow and how we can heal. And that's why we need to reduce the shame and the stigma. So that way more people can find hope and healing. Yeah. So I think this has been a really good conversation today around this topic of shame and stigma. But as we're kind of wrapping up this conversation, I'm just wondering, Chloe, if you were to meet somebody after having this conversation today, and you were to give them one word of encouragement, just to help them want to continue forward, because maybe they're listening to this and it's like, man, I have just been trying to do all the things, and I keep being told that it just whatever I do just isn't enough. And I feel alone and I feel isolated. I feel not validated. What would you do to encourage that person to just keep on moving forward?
I would encourage the person on what their strengths are. Also, I have learned a lot of individuals write down their weaknesses. And I have learned that it's really their strength and that it's growing. So I would not look at your strengths and your truths.
Yeah.
Okay, I am not who I was at this point in time. This is where I'm at right now. And just starting there and holding on to that little bit of hope. That would be my advice that I give someone after listening to this podcast.
Yeah, that's good. So I'm going to take what you said. I'm going to try to articulate that into words for our listeners.
Okay.
So if you're listening to this and this is you've kind of gone through, you're in your own space of recovery, or you're wanting to be in recovery, or you're walking through something really hard, the thing I want to convey to you as you're listening to this is that, first off, you're not alone. The things that you're being told that you're alone and you're not important, you have no worth, those are lies. You do have value. You do have worth. We believe that you are a child of a God who loves you and deeply, who cherishes you, that has created you for a purpose. And no matter what you've walked through, no matter where you're at, there is help and there is hope. And that you do have things to offer to this world. There's people who love you even when you feel unloved. There's people who care about you even when you feel isolated. So I would encourage you as you're listening to this podcast to combat whatever you're feeling with truth, to combat whatever feels heavy with hope, to find those that you can trust, that you can speak into, that can speak into you, that can be present with you, and you can build a community. If you don't know how to find those people, please reach out to us at Peace Restored. We're happy to have conversation with you. We're happy to provide resources for you. We want you to know that there is hope beyond your circumstances. Thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast today. We know it's a heavy topic, but it's such a valuable topic for us to step into on stigma and shame. And I'm so glad that you were here today, Chloe, to be on this podcast with us. And I hope that you could be back again with us soon.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And hopefully I'll see you soon.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Chloe.